Good morning, Bitcoiners. I hope you're doing well. I'm loving my life. Who could complain on a day like today? Hold on, I gotta get my mic correctly adjusted. I don't know what's wrong with it right now. Give me 1 second here, team. That should be good. There we go. Well, not so much. Hold on. Hold on. Don't know why it got loose, but we'll be okay indeed. Hope everyone's doing well. I got nothing to complain about. No way, no how. Can't do it. Good morning, Nolan and the Great Awakening crew, and happy hump day indeed. It is Wednesday. Chef Zero says, "You have loved righteousness and hated wickedness. Therefore, God, your God, has set you above your companions by anointing you with the oil of joy." Hebrews 1:9. Love it. Blessing, Bampians, indeed. Chatelet, Escape the Matrix 91. Chef Jack 2K. Good morning, crew. Let's roll. Can verify. Suntech is operational in Texas. We love it. Lance says Venezuela 3. USA 2. Time for statehood. Indeed. Venezuela. Congratulations. The thing about these world baseball, like hockey, it's the same with the United States and Canada. The thing about the United States is like the fourth or fifth team from the United States could easily win the world championship. No other country in the world can do that. So I never really worry or think of it as like, oh, America lost the World Series of Baseball or the World Baseball Classic. I mean, like I said, the fourth team could probably win. There's no denying that the United States of America is the greatest baseball playing country in the world, but anyone can win one game against a set of players. So Venezuela, amazing. I'm real happy. That's great. Congratulations. I think Venezuela needs it a lot more than America. And so you love to see it. And I was rooting for Venezuela in a sense. So congratulations. We are excited. We love all the baseball playing nations of the world, by the way. Cuba, Dominican. I think Dominican and Venezuela are only two big ones I've never been to. But I played a lot of baseball in Japan and South Korea. So we love baseball over there. I love when the rest of the world is like, nobody plays baseball. Yeah, you're right. Nobody. The two richest countries in the world who have the most, interesting domestic cultures these days. Japan, America, Korea, throw it in there. And then you compare all these soccer player countries, like this is the most boring of soccer. 1-0 after I don't know how much nil they call it, 1-0. And it's like anyone with a little bit of grass and a stone can play soccer. Baseball requires a little bit of time, attention, and all the rest of it. But we love baseball, and it's no coincidence that the two countries of Japan and America and all the other countries that play love it so much. It's the highest paid sport in the world, right? No one else makes as much money as baseball players. And what's great about them is they don't have to put their body on the line forever to play baseball. Soccer is good at that too. I guess soccer doesn't change your life expectancy or anything. John C919 says, "I'm guessing the Fed or Senate has pulled the rug on us this morning. F 'em or both. We'll find out." The last I saw, the SAVE Act does still have a chance. I don't think it's dead or anything like that, but we'll talk about that. That's in the notes today. JJ Fox says, "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to get through this thing called life. Electric word life. It means forever. And that's a mighty long time. But I'm here to tell you there's something else. The afterworld, a world of never-ending happiness. You can always see the sun, day or night, indeed. So when you call up the shrink in Beverly Hills, you know the one. Doctor, everything will all be right. Instead of asking how much of your time is left, ask them how much of your mind, baby. Because in the life, things are much harder than in the afterworld. In this life, you're on your own." Okay, I'm done. Well, we're all here together. For now, you are indeed in and out of this world on your own, but we are here together this morning, and let's enjoy it. We're going to get through all this stuff, and we're going to have a great time doing it. Hello from snow-filled Wisconsin. Climate change is a bitch. When do you guys make your maple sugar, your maple syrup in Wisconsin? Too cold for it, it sounds like. I I think the sap is flowing back home right now, if I'm not mistaken. I think the sap is flowing. 3, 2, 1, contact with the count. Chef Zero, indeed. High pitched squeal in the background. Oh, is that so? Parrots. I think parrots. Let me know if there's still a squeal. Probably parrots. Parrots are really loud and annoying, and my wife just got upset because we had the towels out drying on the line, and the parrots visited them, which means now they've got to be rewashed because they're full of parrot poo. Parrots are a real nuisance, by the way, and the way they don't, if you don't teach them how to speak, they just squawk and are super annoying. But we've got about 8 or 9 parrots that are here all the time, and green parrots, beautiful green parrots. They're lovely, but they're terrible sounding. So I think that's all it is the parrots. Parrots only come at evenings and mornings. Otherwise, it's too hot and they hide. A trifecta: Venezuela, Iran, and Cuba. You go, Mr. President. We'll see. We'll see. Good morning, Count and crew. Can't believe I missed the live yesterday where Smokey and the Bandit was referenced. One of the best. They're in the show again today. We're going to be talking about them. Or maybe not. No, sorry. But I do have a Sal video. I'm late, indeed. CB is here. Organic maple syrup from Vermont. Thank you, says Chef Zero. Not flowing today, but been running. Yeah. Are they good eating? The parrots, no. They're a little small. And we got a lot of pigeons here. People used to eat pigeons all the time. Pigeon pie and stuff like that. You can still get pigeon pie in Montreal. It still exists. The original, by the way, if you're a Quebecer and you didn't know this, the old days, the meat pies were made with pigeon. And you can still get a pigeon version of it in the Saguenay. Pigeon pie, also big in the U.S. South still a thing. But I'm not a big pigeon fan. I'm not out there trying to eat the pigeon. Good morning, homeless Dr. 10. We love it. Observer, indeed, live long and prosper with the Bitcoin. Good morning, Bitcoiners, Zombie Co Gaming. And he also says, NPC news is abundant today from CNN to anything ending in Times. I don't know how Nolan is going to decide which ones to present today because there are so many good ones. I didn't get that many, I'll be honest, Zombie Go Gaming, Co Gaming. I got some. But I didn't really go on CNN today. I just did my normal Google search of experts say and authoritarian and climate change and got what I got from that. I have the one, I'll show you what I got. I got some good ones, though. I think you'll be happy. Good morning, Nolan. Hopefully Anduril sent your kite killer drone. No, they sent the weather tech, and they took the wind down enough last night for everything to die. And that was great. Yo, warmongers. Indeed, I think we've also got Citadel Daniel mentioning, indeed, where did he say? I take no credit for his genius. In case of this, I was quoting Prince song. There we go. Well, we love Prince. Big fans of Prince. Oh, yeah. Good morning, warmongers. So we got warmongers. Yeah, we got a lot of warmongers here. We love all the warmongers here. We're warmonger. And the YouTube chat. Good morning, John Toro. I hope you're doing well indeed. That's some sunrise behind me. Even if we've got some parrots squawking, don't worry about the parrots. They won't spend the whole show here. And I checked, Bitcoin is running. Hold on, my Bitcoin price check is being some reason hidden. We're at 72,400 US trash tokens for a Bitcoin. Down a little. What are you going to do? Let's have a coffee and talk about what's new. There we go. Oh yeah, let's go crazy. It's a great song. I'm one of the all-time Prince fans. Ever since Prince, I don't know if you know this, but Prince, I was a big fan of the Tim Burton original Batman movie. And Tim Burton hired Prince to do the whole soundtrack, and he did such a great job. And so it was one of those things that introduced me to Prince when I was real young and became a huge fan ever since that soundtrack. A lot of people don't know. All right, let's start with our NPC news. Let's find out how the NPCs are doing today, what they're hearing about. It's still not going great for them, I'll be honest. No one wants to live in NPC world. especially when you realize that we got some major problems with our culture, everyone, according to the NPCs. Shakespeare's birthplace, right? Stratford, to be decolonized. It's been so colonized, but hold on. I think you mean it doesn't mean they're kicking out the Somalis, okay? It's not that. That's not the kind of decolonization we're going to get in Stratford upon Avon. In fact, the kind of decolonized Stratford upon Avon situation are fears its success benefits the ideology of white European supremacy. Guys, go to Stratford now. It's your only chance to see it. It's gonna all turn black. It's only gonna be black people soon. They're not gonna have anyone else because, of course, everyone knows Shakespeare was plotting. He was plotting to talk about the benefits and ideology of white European supremacy. He was so successful. You need to absolutely decolonize Shakespeare. And for that, you got to race swap all the books too. And except for Othello, of course, right? Except for Othello. Othello, that can stay the exact race that everyone is. All right, we got an expert say one here. Anyone in the chat from Arizona? Any regular watchers from Arizona? We have an Arizona expert here. He's trying to help you. Your thermostat, whoops, what did I just do? It's my favorite kind of NPC news. These are my absolute favorite kinds. Your thermostat should be set at this temperature. I was just sitting at my thermostat and I was saying, what do I do now? What's going on? How do I handle there's all these numbers. I could go anywhere between 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. What do I do? I don't know what to do with the temperatures. But luckily, we've got an expert here, and we have a whole article to tell you what the expert said about setting your thermostat temperature. Welcome back to air conditioning season, Arizona. While temperatures make an unseasonably early foray into triple digits, you may be ready to turn on your air conditioning, right? If it ever turned off. While your thermostat setting may be a source of major fights and debates in your home, experts have stepped in to settle the argument by picking the best, most efficient temperature for your AC unit to be set to. Drum roll, please. They say you should set your thermostat to 78 degrees, guys. Now you know. That's the perfect temperature. It's perfect. There's nothing better than 78. Experts have weighed in finally. I know you're sitting there confused. What do I do now? I found the thermostat. Now what? Now you know. Just pick 78. The experts have weighed in. Thank God. Thank God. We need it. Jack 2K. I lived in Arizona for 13 months years ago. Does that count? Yes. Yeah, you can knock it up to 85, says CB Van. No! CB Van, you are disrespecting the expert's opinion. What do you know about your own comfort in room, CB Van? What do you know about it? What do you know about what you like? Experts have weighed in. There's more important things than your comfort, okay? You've got a world to save here. If you don't put your thing at 78, if you're selfishly going for 85, think about your children. Think about the future. What are you going to do about that, CB Van? Selfish. And even worse news, guys. Even worse news. Some science came out today. We got some science about Antarctica. We got this wind-triggered Antarctic sea ice decline preconditioned by thinning winter water. Guys, the water got so thin this winter. I know. You're all up there in the north without your thick water. You have your thick water, right? And then those poor people in Antarctica with their thinned water. And the water got so thin. The winter water was so thin. It was so small and weak. And the winter thin water, right, just created this wind-triggered Antarctic sea ice decline, right? It was the precondition. You're all happy up north in your thick water lives. Meanwhile, we got basically anorexic winter water. It's basically anorexic, right? It's not, nothing's going right for it, right? It's like Ariana Grande of the water, right? Ariana Grande water. That's what's happening. And then the wind is like, whoa, look at that thin water over there. Hey, baby. And it just goes right over Antarctica, and then thin water, wind. And then you know what happens next to the ice. According to science, it's all gone. And then the doomsday glacier is coming because of the damn anorexic water. So thin, unhealthy, thin water. Science, guys, science, okay? That's what's going on. We have so much science today. We need it, though. We'd be really screwed. Now we got this, too. Oh, these are my favorites. We got more of this study that it's going to be too hot to exercise. This has been making the rounds all week. This is some high-quality science. Again, Greenline reporting on the famous study that we've reported here every day. The future looks lazy. The future is too hot to play. We heard that it might go up a whole degree, and then no one's going to be walking anymore. You're not going to go outside. If it goes from 28.7, that was the temperature, no one going outside. Rising temperatures may drive millions into inactivity, guys. That's the new problem. People are going to be too upset because it's so hot. They're not going to be able to exercise. It is going to cause hundreds of thousands of deaths by 2050. All the lazy people are gonna die because it's too hot to go outside. Research finds heat-linked inactivity could increase by 1.5% per additional hot month. Whoa. No one's gonna make it. Look at, there it is. The 28.7 could raise global physical inactivity by 1.5%. I did the math. You're all gonna die. You're not going to make it. You're not going to exercise. You're going to get so fat. And then you're going to say, where's that thin water? Where is that? I need the thin water. I can't have the thick water. I'm lazy and it's too hot and I'm fat now. I need the thin water. Science, guys, they're going to help us. They're going to put everything together pretty soon. We're going to have a full view of what's happening. And hopefully we can survive and get a little bit of exercise, even if it's at 28.7 with the 1.5% increase in physical inactivity. Climate change to identity, the vital lessons in the metamorphosis. Ovid's 2,000-year-old poem. You might think that Ovid's Metamorphosis, an ancient compendium of the greatest Greek myths, would hold little relevance today. Yeah, you might just be saying, who would read any of that old stupid shit from Greece, right? Dumb Roman shit and Greek shit, right? Who cares about that, right? But the tales of desire and deceit reveal surprising parallels with contemporary concerns. What? With climate change and the refugee crisis to gender-based violence and sexual identity. It's all in there, guys. Just go read the classics if you need to know what's going on about climate change and trans rights. They knew back in those days, right? Speaking of trans rights, what about this authoritarian government in America? When authoritarian movements like MAGA hollow out local institutions before they seize national power, the Milwaukee Independent. Indeed, authoritarianism rising in America. We're hearing about it here too from The Guardian. The Guardian, Florida professors quietly defy restrictions on race and gender. Are they reading any Ovid's Metamorphosis? Were they professors of ancient Greek? Didn't they know they were teaching that? Who knows? This is how authoritarianism works. Sociology faculty are refusing to alter syllabi, even as state targets how race, gender, and inequality are taught. Oh my goodness, guys, the professors are getting targeted. Creeping authoritarianism on campus. I just bet that everyone on campus has to think the same way. Imagine if everyone on campus had to think the same way. That's authoritarianism. We get this too from the professors. Professor flees As Trump-era campus fears grow, this from MSN, the climate of political pressure under Trump administration is prompting U.S. professors to alter coursework, avoid sensitive topics, and in some cases leave the country. One Emory University professor relocated to Australia, citing an intolerable shift toward censorship. And it was not Weinstein. It was not Weinstein. That's what we get. That's what we get. Brett Weinstein, it was not him. He had to quit for other reasons, guys, other reasons. So that's what we got in our report on NBC News. I'm going to have another sip of coffee and then report some strange things that happened last night, which are these. A lot of comets last night. America getting whacked by comets. All kinds of comets yesterday. I have no idea what's going on, but 4 comets in 4 different. Oh, that was a different one. There was a bunch in America, so I got this one too. This was in Cleveland, Pennsylvania. Apparently, there's a big sonic boom. Look at this thing come through, bang! And a lot of people caught it on video. There it is again, and a lot of people were commenting on it. A really strange one was viewed in Texas. Look at this, Red Oak, Texas. Tell me if you've ever seen anything like this. I don't know if it's AI or what, but look at this little bugger. Look at him go.
Yeah, what the fuck is this?
What's happening? What's going on? What? Looks like my kite. Less noisy. Go up and down. What the hell is that? I mean, could be fake.
What is that?
Who knows? Things are getting weirder and weirder.
What the fuck?
So there it is. Lots of comments. What are people saying about the comments? Let me know about the comments. Anyone see a comet where they live? Let me know. Oh yeah, I saw the Tim Dillon one. Yeah. I saw the Tim Dillon stuff. I am going to be looking at their fake news hoaxes later on CNN. I got a list today. So there you go. We got strange things going on around the world. That's for sure. We're going to talk about a lot of them today. All the strangeness. First, let's do a quick update on what just happened there. Okay, hold on, guys. My Sal video is slightly off. There. Don't know. I had it shared where I wanted it. I'm going to start it over to make sure we get the audio. So we got an update on the Strait of Hormuz. Interesting stuff. And I will share it all with you now. So here's Sal Mercogliano giving us his update. I think his updates are the most credible and interesting.
Tankers reported, although we're going to report on some big substantial changes here. That brings us to the heart of today's video, which is looking at ships getting in and out of the Persian Gulf through the Strait of Hormuz. The International Maritime Organization just reported there are 3,200 ships estimated to be in the Persian Gulf with about 20,000 seafarers trapped on board. So obviously getting ships out is going to be essential. Well, we've got kind of 2 conflicting stories on this. This story from Reuters: oil tankers are crossing the Strait of Hormuz, and Iran's actions to choke traffic through the shipping route have not hurt the U.S. economy. This is according to economic advisor Ken Hassett at the White House. Now, Hassett said this, quote, already we're seeing tankers are starting to dribble through the straits, and I think it's a sign of how little Iran has left. We're very optimistic that this is going to be over in the short run, and then will be price repercussions when it is over for a few weeks as the ships make it to the refineries. We're seeing some signs that they might be pulling that back to make sure that they have enough energy for themselves, and we've got a plan for that. Hassett being very optimistic in his statements, because the other issue that we're seeing is ships are getting out of the Strait of Hormuz. We know Iranian tankers are going out, reported that yesterday, talked about the fact that Iran is on track to export more oil this month than they did last month. We had 3 ships loading at Karg Island the other day. Just massive amounts of Iranian oil is going out. But then we have this report here from Mike Schuller. New tracking data suggests permission-based transits may be reshaping one of the world's most critical shipping lanes. Now, I've been following Martin Kelly over at EOS and Michelle Weiss-Bachmann at Windward. They're 2 great follows over on X. And both of them were tracking this, and I watch this. I literally watch marine traffic every day. And one of the things we all began to notice was ship movements were very strange. I reported on this a little bit yesterday, but it's even more important today because we've seen more ships do this. According to maritime analytics firm Windward, at least 5 bulkers were tracked over March 15-16 sailing eastbound along Iran's coastline, well outside the narrow international navigation channel typically used for transits. The vessel's trajectory shows signs hugging the Iranian coast rather than using the internationally recognized traffic separation scheme. According to Michelle Weiss-Bachmann, quote, "That's how I saw what I believe to be a new trend. Ships rerouting via Iran's territorial waters to exit the strait." Now, data from marine traffic underscores this. Over the past 3 days, just 15 vessels transited the Strait of Hormuz, including 8 bulk carriers, 5 tankers, and 2 LPG carriers. The imbalance is even more striking if you look at the directions. Approximately 87% of those transits were outbound, with only 13% entering the Gulf. But the issue here is the outbound vessels. I put this together from marine traffic. These are 9 vessels that have departed from this region. All 9 of these, we talked on about one the other day, the Star Gwyneth. But these remaining vessels all were outbound from it. They all share a common track. They move along the very northern part here of the Strait of Hormuz. 2 of them didn't track, turned their AAS off, the Star Gwyneth and the Georgia T. But then they reappear here along the eastern side of the Strait of Hormuz and then disperse out into the Gulf of Oman. Take you over to marine traffic specifically. So when we look at this track here, you can see how the vessels go. Here's Karachi, for example, and Karachi makes this stop, turns north, and comes in. What's interesting is that 7 of the 9 vessels all pass between Larak and Qisham Island here. This is within the territorial waters of Iran, and then hug the coast here. If we go over here and change over to the nautical chart feature of marine traffic, this is the international vessel traffic separation scheme. You can see that Karachi was heading right here for the outbound lane, stops, drifts for a little bit, heads north, and then heads up here between these 2 islands within the territorial waters of Iran, and then proceeds along the east coast here, far out to sea and heading out. Now, there's a couple of plausible reasons for this. One, did the vessels suspect that there are mines in this area, which could be a potential issue? Or second, is Iran directing the vessels to head up to this region up here, do a visual inspection of the vessel, and then allowing them to proceed and sailing on? There was a suspicion during the period of the Red Sea when ships would stop before heading through the area off Yemen, whether they were going through a clearance procedure.
Anyway, the point is follow the money. This clearly indicates, just like the actions taken on Karg Island, that there is no intention to destroy global oil markets. There is no intention to escalate this to the point where the economic concerns of China or any of these other countries are affected. There is an issue with the Gulf Coast countries, America's allies, but when it comes to the escalation part, that can be managed because they're on the same team. The idea here is that keeping the Iranian oil flowing is one of the most important things, and it shows just how interlocked and independent or codependent a lot of this stuff is. This is clearly a sign that Trump wants to maintain the price of oil globally. He does not want to create an economic shock. That goes back to the idea from the very beginning of Lloyd's of London, who really did look like they were trying to escalate what was going on by denying insurance. The insurance is now there. So that's not a concern. The boats that are stuck are generally going to Europe and other places that are allied with America. But there's ways to compensate with what's been missing from Europe because we do have enough reserves. As I said, the months that we can last with the Strait of Hormuz closed as it is quite high. Now, it's a problem for Dubai's economy. It's a problem for a lot of the Gulf Coast countries. But again, there are ways to mitigate that in the short and long term. But again, the important thing here is that oil is leaving, that they're not completely destroying Iran's economic capacity, because this is about making sure Iran can remain a part of the energy infrastructure of the world, even with the regime change going on. Fisher King says, what I've read is that Iran is being allowed to export oil through the Strait of Hormuz exactly for this reason, to keep the global price down. It's the Gulf states, U.S. allies facing trouble, and some sanctions against Russia have been lifted for the same reasons. All the pieces are interlocking. John Conrad says the same. What have I been saying for 3 weeks? Yes, 3. IDC, I don't care what the price of oil climbs to, as long as it remains global. The real danger is if it starts to fracture between nations and regions, but it hasn't. There has been it already had done that, in a sense that Iran was selling sanction-priced oil much cheaper to places like China, and they're probably still getting that. But the important thing to remember is that when you think of the economic calamity that's coming out, it really is isolated to America's allies, to the Gulf Coast, to Dubai, to Saudi, to Bahrain, Qatar, all of these places when it comes to what's going on. So you have to follow the money to understand who's really at risk and to be able to predict where some of this stuff is headed. But indeed, what I have said from day one of the Iran conflict is the Abraham Accords are remaining steady. It looks like America's allies, you heard the MBS continuing to encourage Trump yesterday. He's quoted as saying that. You're seeing more and more of the Gulf Coast people redouble their resolve when it comes to Iran. Here you've got ADNOC, so that is one of the big groups. They're our host when we do the Bitcoin event in MENA in Abu Dhabi. It's part of the Sovereign Wealth Fund, I think. I don't remember exactly what ADNOC is. But it's a big deal. I see the branding everywhere when I'm there. Iran's decision to disrupt the Strait of Hormuz, through which 35% of global crude and 20% of global liquefied natural gas used to pass, represents an attack on the entire world rather than just the Gulf states, and will hit low-income nations especially hard. By taking Hormuz hostage, Iran is committing global economic warfare. This is a global economic issue. It's not a regional problem. The disruption is going to cause increased inflation. It will slow economies. It will affect everyday lives. Families will end up paying for food. So lots of folks saying, indeed, that what's going on over there is more relevant to America's allies. And this guy here says to poor countries, but it's also just the rich ones, which is why Trump's gambit with NATO and them working on the water and Hormuz is important. Amjad Taha says, to some European and NATO leaders, no one said go to battle against Iran, but come defend your bread, your water, your medicine, fight your own fight, and do not expect the hand of another, neither the Americans nor any, to do it for you. You are timid liars, Pharisees of diplomacy, preaching virtue while sowing death through inaction. Yes, Iran is dangerous with its missiles and drones, but when the nations marched against Libya to strike down Gaddafi, no fear or danger stopped them. Again, you got to understand what's going on here, right? Why was it such a different equation when it was Libya and it was the UK and all these people on board, right? Now, I get it. It was Trump starting this, so there is a slight difference, but we got to follow the money here, because what we're seeing in these what we're seeing in all of these allies and who's on whose team and who's really partnered together, it is indeed letting us know that there's something else under the hood going on, some other force. And here you've got Trump talking about Iran and NATO.
All of the NATO allies agreed with us, but they don't want to, despite the fact that we help them so much. We have thousands of soldiers in different countries all over the world, and they don't want to help us, which is amazing. I mean, amazing. And I didn't do a full court press because I think if I did, they probably would be. But we don't need help. That war has been long prosecuted as far as I'm concerned, almost from day one. We knocked out many of these things. We knocked out the Navy essentially in a couple of days. But I was surprised to see that NATO, while they agree that it was a very important thing to do, they agree fully. Nobody said, oh, you shouldn't do it. They would have had a nuclear weapon within 1 month of when we had the B-2 bombers bomb the nuclear potential. I call it the nuclear dust. I think NATO's making a very foolish mistake. And I've long said that, I wonder whether or not NATO would ever be there for us. So this was a great test because we don't need them, but they should have been there. The other thing is, and I think, very important, we didn't have to be there for Ukraine. Biden chose to spend hundreds of billions of dollars on Ukraine. And I guess the head of Germany just made a statement that, they weren't involved and they have nothing to do with the war. But at the same time, they think we did a great thing by knocking them out. Nobody wants to have Iran or anybody, but nobody wants to have Iran with a nuclear, because these people are crazy. They're absolutely crazy, and they're vicious, violent. I mean, they kill. Think of it. They killed, now I hear it's about 41,000 people. They put out a notice 2 days ago. Anybody that protests will be immediately shot and killed. That's pretty tough stuff. So everyone agrees with us, but they don't want to help. And we as the United States have to remember that because we think it's pretty shocking.
So you're seeing a lot of, what's actually going on here. I think a lot of it has to do with Iran's place within this world order that was created out of World War I, World War II. I think it does have a lot to do with the City of London through those allies and those systems that were created. Here's a bit of 4chan speculation from someone saying, Iran is not an insolvent pariah state. Iran is the primary source of unhedged liquidity for the shadow banking system. London is the hub. Tehran is the offshore battery. IRGC energy credits are not sold. They're swapped for Vostro credits in mid-tier Omani banks. These credits get bundled into collateralized synthetic obligations. They hit the London repo desks as high-quality collateral to back short-term loans. Without this 24/7 inflow of dark energy-backed paper, the City of London's leverage ratios collapse. The 2026 Iran war is based on two factions of the global elite fighting one another. Their fight has gone from boardrooms to kinetic events, which can also be seen via other seemingly unconnected accidents in the form of private transport crashes and security lapses for world leaders. Faction A, old money central bankers, they aim to keep the Iran loop open at all costs. They know the Western debt to GDP ratio is terminal. They use the shadow trade to suppress domestic inflation and keep the repo market from seizing. To them, a nuclear deal is just a legal patch to keep the detergent flowing. Faction B, Silicon Valley neo-feudalists, they aim for kinetic escalation and regime change. They want to force a global default and great reset to move everyone into a fully CBDC-tracked ledger. They attack the Iran loop because it is untracked and gives old money a way to survive without their tech. There is no blockade, it's a monopoly. The sanctions are not walls, they're tolls. They create a compliance tax that ensures only the 5 biggest banks can handle the volume. Seizing the central bank of Iran is about deleting the last off-grid gold reserves. If the Iran loop breaks, London will take a 30% liquidity haircut within 48 hours, which one may see via a shift in the gold to oil ratio. Escalation will probably involve cutting subsea cables. The system is cannibalizing its own infrastructure to stay alive. Now, you see Exhibit A or Faction A and Faction B. Of course, Bitcoiners and America, I don't think can fit into this Faction B Silicon Valley thing. I think CBDCs are banned until at least 2030. I don't think we're ever getting one because of what's going on with the amount of Bitcoin being injected into the system and the amount of Bitcoiners involved in this, as well as the whole populist thread underneath Trump that is very anti-CBDC. So I'd say there's one piece missing here, but it's why it comes back to these domestic political issues as well. It comes back to these factions within American populism. And Fisher King says here, Trump should remember that a lot of his appeal was giving Americans a sense that he really cared about their day-to-day concerns: immigration, overrunning communities, cost of living, jobs, outsourcing. Foreign adventures make a splash, but don't help on the home front at all. Now, I'll disagree with Fisher King here in that I believe that if America is going to deliver this domestic agenda, they simply have to get out of this British system. They have to get out of whatever Federal Reserve trap America fell into 100 and something years ago. We can't have any threat to the system. Once Trump gets control of the Federal Reserve in May, my prediction is you go hard into the golden age. They print a shit ton of money. They create bimetallism in America. We have this split. We have US dollars for consumption as political money. We have Bitcoin. We have the energy industries. We have what's left of Wall Street peeling off and creating an alternative economy for the actual people who want to save and the important parts of our economy that are moving forward and delivering on this golden age. For everyone else, we have a type of hybrid consumer economy, which will last probably for a whole generation while we fully make the transition over to a Bitcoin standard. So that's been my prediction for a long time. And when I look at it like this, when you look at the war that's going on, if Trump gets control of the Federal Reserve in May, and then you've got this potential disruption of his economic golden age that he's working towards over the summer, then all is lost for him. He can't win the midterms. He can't really deliver on this. This takes away the last variable that exists on the chessboard. This is the last unforeseen surprise that we could possibly, I think, suffer in America would have been this scenario with Iran. Now, people say, well, that's what they said last time in June when Trump used the bomb. Now, go back to that time in June that we all lived through when they put the big mother of all bombs down into Iran. And remember that we didn't know how long it was going to delay the whole project. We didn't know if it was 40 years. We didn't know if it was 10 years. We didn't know if it was 3 months. We didn't know if it was 6 months. There was the potential already then that it didn't work, right? I remember Trump saying, oh, it's going to delay it forever. But we didn't know that, right? There was no way we could have known exactly what happened. If you say they didn't move stuff out, well, I mean, how do you know? Pretty sure we were looking at it. Now, you also don't want what we had from Pete Hegseth and everything last June, which was anyone questioning the war is somehow a traitor. Like, we can question all this stuff. So I don't want to hear anything like that. That's partly contributed to this environment where there isn't a lot of trust and there isn't a lot of unity, especially in Trump's MAGA movement, because indeed, the only thing that seems to be working for this London banker situation is the division that comes out. Hold on, I'm supposedly missing something here too. Or maybe not. I got to take some of these down though. 1 second. There we go. So when you think of the actual piece that's working here, when you look at what is actually happening when it comes to UK and all these folks, again, it's about keeping these divisions alive. Just look at the way the Wall Street Journal is reporting on things today. It's this story again. They've been trying this one all week. Russia is secretly providing satellite imagery and sharing drone technology to help Iran target US forces in the region. I mean, my prediction is Trump is going to ignore this again. Trump's not going to say anything about this. This is clearly a type of escalation. The worst kind of escalation, right? America starting to confront China and Russia is what you don't want, but it is what the City of London wants. It is what you want, what all of these banking Federal Reserve types want. But that's why you're seeing such a heavy load of disinformation right now. Now, legacy news is so untrustworthy, right? So we're flying without that, right? Here's just the list. After last week's CNN disastrous daily misinformation week during a war, right? It felt like a good time to remind everyone of the hoaxes CNN has pushed. Just look at the list. Rural America can't live without NPR PBS hoax. ICE detains 5-year-old hoax. Hexit kill everybody hoax. Trump destroying White House hoax. Photo of starving Gaza baby hoax. Israel troops murdered food-seeking Palestinians hoax. Trump tariffs will explode prices hoax. Maryland man hoax. Black newborns much more likely to die if Doc is white hoax. Elon Musk Nazi salute hoax. Mass hysterectomies performed on immigrants hoax. The all-white Trump party hoax. Springfield bomb threat hoax. Trump called for Liz Cheney to be executed hoax. I don't think that's a hoax. Violent crime down under Biden-Harris hoax. Arlington cemetery hoax. Kamala was never America's border czar hoax. Russia collusion hoax. Hands up, don't shoot hoax. Juicy Smollett hoax. Covington KKK kids hoax. Very fine people hoax. 7-hour Gap hoax. Russian bounties hoax. Trump trashes troops hoax. Policeman killed at mostly peaceful January 6th protest hoax. Rittenhouse hoax. Eating while black hoax. I don't know what that is. Border agents whipping illegals hoax. NASCAR news hoax. Georgia Jim Crow 2.0 hoax. Trump assaulted Secret Service agents and grabbed steering wheel of beast hoax. MAGA assaulted Paul Pelosi hoax. COVID lab leak theory is racist hoax. Hunter Biden's laptop is Russian disinformation hoax. Joe Biden will never ban gas stoves hoax. COVID deaths are overcounted as a conspiracy theory hoax. Mass graves of native children in Canada hoax. Trump killed Japanese koi fish hoax. Trump told people to drink bleach hoax. Hamas hospital hoax. If reelected, Trump will execute people hoax. The 900,000 kids hospitalized with COVID hoax. Dozens of environmental hoaxes. The Alpha Bank hoax. Libs of TikTok's murdered non-binary teen hoax. Aaron Rodgers, Sandy Hook, truther hoax, bloodbath hoax, Biden sharp as attack hoax, Iowa poll hoax, Melania Doc is a box office flop hoax. It's just hoax. We live in a hoaxocracy. So when you're living in this world without any news that's reliable, you've got something that looks like, if you follow the money, a shadow war going on beyond the sight of what the news is talking about. And then add to that, you've also got this podcaster war that's broken out in MAGA world, and you start to see why we are in this no trust environment that we find ourselves in. Here's Matt Walsh talking about it yesterday, how we've ended up in this. Oh, no, I did the totally wrong thing right there. Let me reshare to make sure we have this stuff and you can all hear it.
I keep hearing about Erica. People say, well, if none of this stuff is true, why won't she sue? Well, I'll tell you why. And this is a case, again, here's a case study, microcosm. Can Erica sue over any of this stuff? Sure, she could sue. I mean, I hope she does, just as an outside observer. You can sue anyone. Anyone can sue anyone. That is for sure. So if the question is, can so-and-so sue this other person, the answer is always yes, they can. You can sue anyone for anything. But to win a lawsuit, well, that's a different matter. Because in order to win, she would have to prove that this person, first of all, posted this nonsense knowing that it wasn't true. That's proving malice. She would have to prove, that's the standard for someone, especially who's a quote-unquote public figure.
Let me just skip this.
Knew when they reason enough why sense shows what you're doing. But I can't prove what's in your own head. I can't prove what's in your heart. The upshot here is that the slanderers and the defamers basically have carte blanche to lie about you and destroy your reputation. Your only recourse is costly, time and cost prohibitive, and may damage your reputation even more than it already was. And this is the situation now. It's really bad. It's real ugly out there. Erica Kirk is one of the worst examples we've ever seen, but it's not just her. And this is all part of the information environment that we're in now, which is totally screwed, to put it scientifically. And mainstream media obliterated its reputation, its credibility over the course of decades. I mean, it used to be that the information, if you were getting information about what's going on in the world, you could only get it from these big legacy mainstream media outlets, right? And that also gave you recourse, by the way, because back before all this, if like some New York Times reporter came out and just stated as a fact, Erica Kirk is torturing children, now you have many more options, right? And even before a lawsuit, like there's an institution there. You can try to hold the institution accountable. You can at least get the person fired. And if you do go and file a lawsuit, well, now there's they've got something to lose here because it's the New York Times. But now in this environment, it's not like that anymore, because everyone just has a platform. They can say whatever they want, and they can lie, and a lot of people do. Does that mean that it'd be better off if it was still the mainstream media controlling everything? No, obviously not. The mainstream media obliterated its credibility over the course of decades, culminating in COVID, BLM, transgenderism, 3 of the worst examples of mass hysteria in American history, all unfolding at the same time, basically, right? I mean, transgenderism, that the trans ideology had predated it, and obviously the BLM did too, but all these things kind of came to a head at basically the same time, and they were all pushed by the mainstream media. And that was the end of the old gatekeepers regime, and there's no coming back from it, nor should we. Any faint hope of redemption for the MSM, I don't think there is any hope, but if there ever could be, it would require accountability and consequences for the people who push these lies, and there's been none of that at all, and never will be. And so what happens now? Well, into the vacuum that has been left rushes the independent, quote unquote, creators. Independent, even though they're not actually independent. And I don't just mean because of foreign involvement or whatever. I mean, sure, there's some of that, but everybody is relying on ads. They're reliant on ad revenue, clicks, subscriptions in many cases, like all these things, right? It's not sinister in and of itself, right? You got to make your money somehow. But anyone who has sponsors, if you have sponsors, I have sponsors, okay? But then you say, well, I'm independent. Well, how independent are you? You answer to your sponsors. But in any case, everyone else rushes in, and then what's ended up happening is that many of them have proven to be just as deceitful, amoral, and fame hungry as.
And so, that's a little bit what makes Bitcoiners different. My sponsor is Bitcoin, and it's a powerful sponsor in its own way. So when I think of where we're at right now in America with this war in Iran, everything we're seeing is 100% predictable. Like the number one easiest thing to predict going into this war, the number one easiest thing to predict was there was going to be this division, especially amongst MAGA people, especially amongst the right-wing folks. Because when you think about what's going on with Democrats, right? Whoops, no, that's not what I wanted. When you think about what's going on with Democrats, conservatives don't really want to argue with Democrats anymore. The people who still believe this stuff, it's just mental illness. It's not a real argument. There's no real debate. But you shouldn't be in an environment where everyone agrees with Donald Trump or everyone agrees with what's going on. You still want to debate stuff. So the debate is now happening inside of the Republican Party. That became really obvious last year during the first time this Iranian war began. The minute this thing began, you saw the exact same divisions we're seeing today. And that was going to be predictable and obvious. The most obvious and predictable thing that could have happened leading into this war was exactly what we're seeing right now. The Glenn Greenwald folks have always believed this Israel controls things. Iran was just a gentle country, and we had them contained with the original Obama nuclear deal, and that America's escalated all of this stuff. Well, and what about the first bomb that was supposed to take away the nuclear thing? And then you had that same divide going on back then. Everything we see right now is 100% predictable because we saw it last May. Now, you got the Glenn Greenwalds and all these people saying, like I said, oh, they don't pose a threat. Iran wasn't a threat. Well, okay, maybe, but let's start with no more death to America. They'll say, oh, death to Israel. We just want to stop their regime. We just want to change things in Israel. Then why death to America? Like, you just want to change things in America? Is that it? So they weren't even at the point where they weren't saying death to America. You couldn't even get them to say, stop saying death to America. It was all Mark Bar America. And so when you add up what's going on in the Middle East, this whole idea of a fractured ecosystem in a predictable fight that we're in a predictable world where you can't really argue with Democrats anymore. You can argue with people who have peeled out of the Democrat Party, that whole middle of the Democrat Party that became Trump supporters because they couldn't stand the mental illness on the Democrat side. That's where the actual argument and divide can be found. You can find it right there. So coming into this, we've already had that divide. That divide has existed for about a year, and it is the divide that is now dominating politics. The Democrat divide doesn't really matter. Like I said, you can't argue with these people. There's just no arguing. But there is a huge debate within the MAGA world. Now, there's physics to the debate, too. Debate will always turn, especially with the way this information is coming out daily, with the way audiences are behaving, with the way the ecosystem is, exactly what we heard from Matt Walsh. You start to see why this is happening. And you start to see that the divide that we find ourselves in, the whole Israel is controlling America story, that's been around for a long time now. And a lot of people see the world that way. Now, why do they see the world that way? I mean, I'm seeing it. You see the Joe Kent situation. Joe Kent yesterday, who resigned from the administration over what he called Israel's blackmail, right? So he says Israel's blackmail. So after much reflection, he said, I've decided to resign from my position as director of the National Counterterrorism Center effective today. And he says, I could not in good conscience support the ongoing war in Iran. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation, and it is clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby. Now, I believe he believes this, right? So I'm not calling Joe Kent a liar at all. I think this was mostly sincere. But how did we get to this point, right? Like I said, this has been around all year, pretty much, this divide. The divide is healthy, I think. You have to ask questions. We have to know. Caroline Levitt, I think, did a good job saying that Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation. Not sure if that's true, the Margbar America stuff. And now, again, you want to question leaders during a war. So I don't want to make it sound like everything that comes to the administration is true and then you have to believe them. No. Fuck that. We have to be able to question these people. So the debate itself is very healthy. It's a sign of confidence on MAGA's part that they're able to have these debates, that they're able to go through these exercises of not agreeing and following top-down commands. You still have to question it on every side. So the debate is extremely healthy that we're having. Now, the problem is, although the debate is healthy, I'm of the mind a little more that Iran is a threat because of these economic concerns, because of how it plugs into the British Empire divide and conquer theater. Everything is a Potemkin village. Everything is about dividing people's attention, dividing people up. And that seems to be working in this case. It's the most effective and standard textbook British Empire divide and conquer tactic you'll ever see. And remember, it's been my belief for a long time that Israel was created for this purpose. It was created and put in the Middle East, and all of these factions in the Middle East were created in order to create a theater, to persuade people, to divide people, to have people in a kayfabe way, in a wrestling way, see heroes and villains and use these archetypes in order to understand the world. Now, the Jewish archetype has been around for centuries. And you have this whole notion, of course, that that Israel is at the heart of the blackmail system. And you've heard many people say that for a long time. And it's part of how this is growing. Now, we'll get into it, but just seeing how Trump reacted, this is kind of what you want, right? Said, I always thought he was a nice guy, a measured response. You don't want Trump getting too involved in this escalation thing, because I like Joe Kent. I think he's a very interesting guy, but we got to point out a few things that have changed about his point of view, right? Tulsi Gabbard says the following about him. This was the worry that I had, that this would really totally divide the Tulsi Gabbard injection of the Democrat portion into MAGA. These are some of the best MAGA people there are in a lot of ways, and the coalition is the most important thing in order to continue to see change in America and what we've seen. So, and to fight against these unseen forces abroad. So Tulsi Gabbard says Donald Trump was overwhelmingly elected by the American people to be our president and commander-in-chief. As our commander-in-chief, he is responsible for determining what is and is not an imminent threat, and whether or not to take action he deems necessary to protect the safety and security of our troops, the American people, and our country. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence is responsible for helping coordinate and integrate all intelligence to provide the President and Commander-in-Chief with the best information available to inform his decisions. After carefully reviewing all the information before him, President Trump concluded that the terrorist Islamist regime in Iran posed an imminent threat, and he took action based on that conclusion. So that was Tulsi Gabbard's take on Joe Kent, and I think that's correct. Now, again, go back to this world that we're in, that you've got this divide amongst MAGA, and you've got all kinds of people fighting about what's going on in Iran and Israel, and is Trump under his thumb. Hotep Jesus says the right-wing influencers at war with each other are a part of a demoralization campaign to depress Republican voters by causing chaos and confusion. Stay focused on your domestic politics and ignore the noise and foreign affairs distractions. Put America first. Again, I don't think you can do that. I think that the foreign affairs question has to be solved, because if it isn't, then that is a huge obstacle to the domestic agenda. Because if the domestic agenda gets sidetracked, if the domestic agenda over the summer, when Trump has to go full golden age populist MAGA stuff, then he doesn't have all the cards then. If he doesn't have all the cards, he's not going to be able to determine what happens over the summer. Trump is trying to control the information supply chain and the narrative supply chain from July 4th right through the midterms. That's been my prediction for a long time, in order to get this stuff out of the way so that you can't have this last-minute economic confusion caused by the City of London because it's clear that Trump is going to get his majority in the midterms. Then that's what you're dealing with. So go back to what we heard from Kent again, and say, if you're reading Kent's letter and wondering how it makes sense for him to say his wife died. So this is where you start getting into the Israel thing and why it's important, right? So he says his wife died from ISIS because of Israel, right? And that she died from an ISIS attack. Understand that Israel controls ISIS is a popular conspiracy theory in some parts. Now, I don't know about controls, and I certainly can imagine why Israel would have wanted ISIS, but I think that shows more where his mind is right now. And when you even go further, right, here's A.G. Hamilton saying, because it's people who have been struck by a virus where they have to blame literally every bad thing on Israel or Jews, JFK, 9/11. Charlie Kirk used to correctly refer to it as brain rot, and now it has gone mainstream. The truth doesn't matter to those infected. Now, what I just can't imagine is, I mean, look what's happening in Israel. This is last night. People are dead. Is this a trap like that Israel played because they want to, like, they're getting hit the hardest of anyone other than Iran? They had more cluster bombs falling last night. Is this the trick to get them to have to face this kind of stuff? Right? Is this is just what came over Jerusalem right now? Extremely dangerous for anyone to be in an unsecured area, let alone a crowd of people outside. Again, not that anyone sharing this cares about the truth. Already shrapnel fell on the church, damaging the roof. Imagine an actual bomb. Now, you don't like the Church of the Holy Sepulchre now apparently is going to be closed for Easter in 2 weeks. I think they're going to let the priests in there. I've been in there. It's such a beautiful place. Such a neat thing. They've got all these beautiful Gregorian chants going on in there. It's very old Druidic almost, Orthodox and Roman Catholic shared church. Very amazing place. And now, interestingly, as we see all of these fights about Israel, about what's going on with Joe Kent and what's the fallout and all of this, the most predictable thing, like I said, just absolutely, we've seen it for a whole year now, this division over what Israel's role is and whether or not the domestic agenda is connected to the foreign agenda, and the foreign agenda is being dominated by Israel. So the domestic agenda is subordinate to the following Israel agenda. That whole fight that's been going on for over a year comes from a lot of what's going on in this online environment. There is no legacy media. We're left on our own, and you've got all these podcasters, you've got all these algorithms, you've got all of this discussion online. And amazingly, here's what PewDiePie, of all people, PewDiePie came out yesterday, one of the biggest YouTubers of all time, and said the following. New video saying algos control your life and have infected your mind. He's right. He suggests 6 things. Intent when you use the internet. This is all coming from one of the most terminally online Bitcoiners, by the way. A separate profile / phone for social apps to create fiction. Self-hosting, disable shorts, don't follow anyone. AC is ahead of the curve. DNS blockers. Don't let your mind be hijacked. Build protections for your sanity. Don't get algo brain. And you're seeing it across the ecosystem. Here's PDB, another great Bitcoiner, saying and looking at what Joe Kent said just a while ago, saying Trump's restraint shows that he wants a deal with Iran and his red line, blah, 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 blah. PDB says saying that Iran wasn't an imminent threat and resigning of it, saying that Iran wasn't an imminent threat and resigning because of it, but posting this in the past is wild. What am I missing? What the fuck is going on in the world, real PDB says. And, in a lot of ways, you can even see just a few years ago when he was running in 2024, when October 7th happened, you saw Joe Kent say the following. He blamed October 7th on Biden's insufficiently hostile policy towards Iran. That was just a few months ago, really not long ago at all. I don't want to get into Joe Kent, and he's got a new wife, and everyone is saying his new wife is a complete and total anti-Israel person who's absorbing all of this stuff. I don't really know what's going on in his family, and that's just podcasters telling me that. So I don't know if that's the case. But what's important, and PDB is on top of this, just as he noticed here and is bringing this up here, PDB reminds us the following. Here's already yesterday Matt Gaetz saying Tucker is beloved by Republican voters. And look very closely at the bottom here, paid partnership. And this comes from Polymarket. And we see PDB saying everyone wants that money. Everyone is for sale. How much do you all need? Come on, Matt. PDB goes on and he starts getting into what's going on at Polymarket, and it's hard to believe. Here's what he says. Check out this screen grab. It's just a glimpse of who's getting paid by way of paid partnerships by Polymarket. Why I was screaming, everyone is getting paid. Everyone's sold out to the gambling sites, ruining our youth. What a shame. Also makes for terrible discord. Just look at all these. Just from his feed, right? This is just him putting in that framework. Watching influencers I know and like and influencers who hate me push narratives through quote posts while taking Polymarket money and showing it paid partnership is bizarre. Turn down the gambling money, reclaim your integrity, morals, freedom. Not worth it. Brand killer. Lots of people doing it. He comes out and, of course, Polymarket blocks him. While many influencers were taking money from Polymarket and playing righteous, I was getting blocked by them and pushing for X to label undisclosed ads. This is not about me. It's about integrity. We all have a choice at this moment. Stand for something real. Again, why I say that my sponsor is Bitcoin and that Bitcoin is a powerful sponsor, because this is the exact scenario that PDB is also in. He's another great Bitcoiner who's been telling you to buy Bitcoin for years. He's been an anti-crypto guy for a long time for the same reasons. Here's a guy basically on the same program as me and many others saying what we've been saying from the very beginning, that you got to be careful and you got to watch out for these folks. Now, here's Tom Luongo, another guy in, I'd say, the similar worldview as me. Here talking about how MAGA either approves Iran or disapproves. 9%. Tom Luongo says the 9% are all on Twitter watching Bannon's war room. And indeed, let's start looking at Bannon, where a lot of this stuff comes from. Adam Townsend has been on the Bannon train for a while. And what does Bannon do yesterday when Joe Kent does this thing? Grace Chong reminding us here, coming from a guy like Joe Kent, you're going to have to investigate this. There should be an investigation of the facts of what he's talking about. And indeed, where are the facts that Joe Kent is like? Where are the facts? So she's saying, let's have an investigation. But now, of course, Bannon playing right into this MAGA divide, populism, controlled by Israel thing. He's been at the very source of this from the very beginning. He's one of the first people to do it. I've had my questions about the 12-day war, about this whole imminent threat, exactly what's there and why things had to go at the time. As I've also said, now you're in it and now we must win it. It's not a good sign when countries rely on the United States for both national and economic security, with the Navy protecting key trade and oil routes through the Straits, the Red Sea, and up and then the Suez Canal. Those questions need answers. And now Joe Kent has put this letter out. Joe Kent has put it out. Let's remember what Steve Bannon is really all about. It took me a while to come around to this being true because it's crazy. But when you keep seeing Steve Bannon stuff, and then when you saw the 12-hour video he made with Epstein and all the recycled nonsense he had in it, you start to understand exactly what's going on. And Adam Townsend reminds us, no more forever wars. Yet these same people blah, blah, blahing, say anything they can to preserve the forever war against Iran. Sadly, endless wars have to be ended one day, and the gravy train stopped. Who is paying these people, and why are they saying it? Is it to distract from Bannon's intimate relationship with Epstein and his victims? Townsend goes further. I was told many, many times that Bannon took over Q after it had been gestated elsewhere. Honestly, I didn't give a shit, but now I'm very interested in the game design of Q and its use in apophenia, lack of reality, mysticism and revelation, and everything is a breadcrumb, etc., etc. Now, I've believed for a long time that Q plus exists, which is why you always see the plus, which is why there's been a difference. I've told you from the very beginning that there is that you can't really trust Q stuff in general because of the amount of disinformation injected into it. So you have to treat it somewhat as entertainment, somewhat as a narrative guide work. You can't take it literally because it has tainted points of contact. And I think I've been consistent about that from day one with Q. Nevertheless, seeing here Adam Townsend talking about where it comes from, and looking at what's going on with Steve Bannon, he says the following: I'm now convinced that the entire open the Epstein files thing was total bullshit, and it was preemptive PR/damage control move by Bannon to reframe his extraordinary relationship with Steve Bannon, or he means Epstein. I think he was and is paying a lot of people off the keep the diversionary tactic in play, whether it is about Iran or all the bullshit about Save Act, blah, blah, blah. Diversionary attacks are a tried and true tactic to expurgate sins and crimes from the public record. It's a tactic Matt Gaetz, who was soliciting, I don't believe that's true, Matt Gaetz soliciting sex from minors, that was a hoax, I believe. There are receipts for his payments to them. That's probably true, but I don't think he was out doing any of the other stuff. Here is an example from Harvey Weinstein in 2017. I'm going to need a place to channel that anger, so I've decided that I'm going to give the NRA my full attention. I hope Wayne LaPierre will enjoy his retirement party. I'm going to do it at the same place I had my bar mitzvah. I'm making a movie about our president. Perhaps we can make it a joint retirement party. 1 year ago, I began organizing a $5 million U.S. trash token foundation to give scholarships to women directors at USC. While this might seem coincidental, it has been in the works for a year. It'll be named after my mom, and I won't disappoint her. So you're seeing the kind of stuff that's been up. And indeed, Brendan Dilley says the madness in the podcast world is a direct result of leaks coming out of Otney. The objective, turn the MAGA base against President Trump and one another to preserve the world the intelligence apparatus had managed since Kennedy or longer. The problem, they got caught. And if you look at Promethean Action, I went back in time to find out how long this has been going on for. And if you go back not far, you can see the Tucker Carlson questions. And here's Promethean Action having covered it just a few months ago. And I think I need to, let me know if the audio is coming through.
Charlie Kirk's assassination. And Mondami became New York's mayor because the cost of living in New York is impossible for anyone but millionaires and billionaires. Tucker's strange analysis of the election followed the softball interview of Nick Fuentes, an operative, if I ever saw one, who the New York Times and others are using to smear Vice President J.D. Vance. The Times claims that Fuentes' racism and anti-Semitism are where you end up if you support J.D. Vance's commitment to cultural and economic nationalism. And unless President Trump succeeds in reviving the U.S. economy, many of the very young, angry men who voted for Trump last November will stay home for the midterms. They will continue to believe that their future amounts to the one dictated by the World Economic Forum. You will own nothing and be happy. Is there a reason not to be pessimistic if that is true? This week, however, saw the president go on a little publicized domestic economic offensive. On Friday, he announced a price-fixing and antitrust investigation of the agricultural cartels which control beef.
So, hold on, I want to see. She had one more piece here. Maybe it's at the beginning.
Supporters seem bent on have Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene become British imperial collaborators? That's the shocking question I'm asking today. And by the end of this briefing, you'll see exactly why two of Trump's most vocal supporters seem bent on undermining his most important economic achievements. Right now, there's a growing narrative that Trump lost his mojo in Tuesday's election because he's too focused on foreign policy instead of the domestic economy. Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying it. The City of London's man at the Financial Times, Edward Luce, is also pushing it hard. Tucker Carlson wrote it in his Friday newsletter. The common wisdom says Trump needs to abandon foreign policy and just focus on kitchen table issues at home. Stop the negotiations, stop the trade deals, just fix prices and people will be happy. But here's what they're all missing. Trump's foreign policy is his domestic policy. You cannot rebuild America's economy while the British Empire's globalist system controls world trade, energy, and finance. What Trump is doing in Korea, with China, in the Middle East.
So this is the world I'm seeing. That's why I don't think you get to just ignore foreign entanglements for now. I think we have to get out of the system, rebalance energy, change the financial system that's underpinning all of this and the relationships that are underpinning all of this. You have to have a new information environment. Again, I don't want to go back to the legacy media, but we've got to be able to get through and understand that there is a war, a psychological war going on, an economic war going on. That's the nature of World War III. And therefore, it's very difficult to trust any of these people. I like that there's a debate. There's nothing wrong with the debate. The way to win the debate is economics. The way to win the debate is getting this system to function correctly, getting abundant energy, cheap energy, getting people to be able to have these economic advantages that simply don't exist when you have an extractive, print money forever type of system. Because the issue there is you're not, the risks are too great. If Trump gets control of the Federal Reserve, he's got to have a good economy over the summer and into the autumn. That's priority number one for him. Having this wild card that could be played at any time during that, in the same way that you can have an October surprise for a presidential election. If suddenly Iran, that had the capacity that it had a month ago, decided to close the Strait of Hormuz next October and America wasn't prepared, Trump probably loses the midterms. Doesn't matter about SAVE Act or anything like that. Getting them now, getting this stuff and getting the relationships that the UK and the City of London had with Iran out of the way brings us to this point where things can actually change. And just to give you a great example about what's actually going on here, our favorite, the fake professor from China, Canada, has his new Game Theory Epstein's World video at my lecture on how Jared Kushner is the new Epstein. What? And he's saying here that if you listen to this video, which I had the unfortunate, I did, and didn't make me any smarter. All I got was, his ranting, or not even ranting. It's the opposite of a rant, his carefully constructed, psychologically manipulative points of view. Remember what he said about Bitcoin, right? Again, go back to my Bitcoin frame for any of these guys. Nick Fuentes, it's just fiat. Professor Zhang, it's just fiat. It can be shut down with a button, he said, right? Oh, yeah. Carly P. Riley says, he says we went to war with Iran to protect the illusion of the system. Do you think the Iran thing is about helping the old system? I mean, forget what not forget. Don't worry about the Israel question for a second, right? Just forget the Israel question for just 1 second. Is Iran about the old system or the new system? Which is it? I don't see how it helps the old system at all. NATO getting destroyed, EU getting destroyed in this, America telling the UK that they're former allies, helping Russia, helping stabilize oil and gas for the global price for China. Does that sound like the old world to you? No, right? He says it's all about the illusion of the system. He describes the system in part as the rules-based order. The rules-based order is Mark Carney's new world order. It's nothing to do with Trump. That's what Trump's fighting against. You're seeing an intra-Anglo civil war. The Anglo world provided the context for this rules-based order, and America is leaving the rules-based order. Greenland wasn't the rules-based order. None of that was the rules-based order. Joe Biden was the rules-based order. We're done with that. Totally disagree. No one is collapsing the rules-based order faster than Trump. The elites used the rules-based order to extract wealth for decades. And now that they have it, they're content to demolish the rules-based order to get much more of it. That's what I see going on. So Zhang and all of these people that are out there trying to get you to see the world in terms of Israel blackmailing America, they're all of the same. They're all from the same design. Nick Fuentes, this guy, everyone who's bought it. Now, some people sincerely believe it. It's not all a scam, right? I'm not saying everyone who believes it. I can see, based on the patterns, why someone would say that. Now, when you look at the whole context, I just don't see it. I see something else entirely. If you look at the type of global alignment that Trump is inducing here, look at this. We are in a period of historic global realignment. In 20 to 30 years, it's quite possible that the global order will look like this. The USA's closest allies will be Eastern Europe, Latin and South America, Japan, Israel, Iran, India, and the Arab Gulf states. What have I been telling you here? I've been telling you that America's most important allies are indeed Saudi Arabia, UAE, Japan, Korea. I'd throw India into there. South America is a given because that's what America is trying to bring back, the Monroe Doctrine, where you've got all of these people around. Rapprochement between the USA, Russia, and China will have been achieved. Not allies per se, but not a threat to each other. Just competitors. They have systems. We're going to compete. We're going to see which ones work. For those people, I think the Chinese are going to be fine with their system. I think they might change a bit of how top down it is. I think they're going to get a bit more relaxed on the top end. But they're still going to be a Chinese system, and good for them. The countries that will be the USA's biggest adversaries will be the Islamized Western nations. I don't think this is going to happen. NATO will have dissolved. Also, we will be in a non-hot war of ideas with Australia and New Zealand. Canada will still be Canada, and Africa will still be Africa. I don't think that. I think Canada's toast. Pakistan and Afghanistan will still be a mess. I'm unsure about South Korea. They're going to be great. Greenland will be the most popular American casino tourist destination, second only to Vegas. What happens in Greenland stays in Greenland. Cuba Libres will be great again. The American flag will be flying on Mars in Elon Town. And that's more or less what I think is going to happen. We've got all this potential to get there. And the potential to get there comes from changing this financial system. And again, everything comes down to breaking up these old world orders. You're experiencing the old fiat system falling apart, all that hidden money, all of the ways in which Iran was used, in which Venezuela was used, in which North Korea was used, all of that is falling apart. And what you're getting is something like sovereign nations, Russia, China, the United States, having their own systems, having competitive systems, yet not colluding to keep the whole world under some Green New Deal scam inside of some financialized system. It's why you're seeing simultaneous to all of these systems breaking, the information systems, the energy bottleneck systems, why you're seeing all of this stuff change simultaneous to the Federal Reserve and its own bankruptcy, which looks imminent now. Trump is going to get control of a mostly bankrupt Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve balance sheet has grown from 800 billion to over 9 trillion US trash tokens in just 15 years. An 11x increase represents the most aggressive monetary experiment in human history. This isn't gradual policy adjustment. It's the complete abandonment of sound money principles that took centuries to establish. When Lehman Brothers collapsed in 2008, the Fed printed 1.7 trillion US trash tokens for QE1, claiming it was a temporary emergency measure. By temporary became permanent, and emergency became standard operating procedure. QE2, QE3, and the 2020 pandemic response each shattered previous records. The 4.5 trillion printed in 2020 alone exceeded the Fed's entire balance sheet from just 2 years prior. And there's what's remarkable. And here's what's remarkable. Despite creating more dollars in 15 years than in the previous 95 years of the Fed's existence, we're told inflation is transitory and under control. Every asset from stocks to real estate to art has inflated to historic highs, yet the official CPI barely budges. The purchasing power destruction is hidden in plain sight. Your salary buys less, a house less, less education, less healthcare, but somehow prices are stable. The monetary debasement isn't economics, it's alchemy. The belief that prosperity can be printed into existence while production remains constant defies every lesson history has taught us about currency destruction. And it's why simultaneous to all this trouble, you have all this terrific news about the actual financial system changing. Once we're out of this war, I believe we're going to be in a world where the financial system looks totally different. We're already seeing it. Yesterday, the SEC announced in DC, of course, that mining is going to be a huge part of this. Mining rewards are not securities, so the miners are now going to be into the commodity business. Here is the SEC chair talking
interpretation, which is grounded in existing law and informed by extensive public input, establishes 4 asset categories that are not deemed to be securities. So digital commodities, digital collectibles, digital tools, and payment stable coins under the Genius Act. With these categories in place, the interpretation then clarifies that only one crypto asset class remains subject to securities laws, namely digital securities, which are traditional securities that are tokenized. This distinction returns the SEC to its core mission and statutory authority of protecting investors involved in securities transactions. We're not the Securities and Everything Commission anymore. So
I was a keynote at this event several years ago, the DC Blockchain Summit. So you're seeing this huge change indeed. All kinds of things are now legal. Huge new guidances. Of course, yesterday the SEC and CFTC released new guidance that quietly changes the game. Tokens are now split into 5 clear categories: commodities, collectibles, tools, stablecoins, and securities. Most importantly, airdrop doesn't equal security if users give nothing in return. That means no payment, no work, no data, likely safe. Do tasks to earn tokens, still a gray zone. This is big because many top crypto projects are US-based: MetaMask, Phantom, OpenSea. They've avoided airdrops due to legal risks. This guidance opens the door again, but don't get it wrong. This is the interpretation, not law. Airdrops probably going to be inducing all kinds of interesting behavior. We also got great news that self-custodial wallet developers don't need to register as broker-dealers. Also big news. We'll see what's going on. So CFTC, everyone giving the regulatory clarity. Simultaneous to that, we've also got Square triggering the auto-enabled Bitcoin payments. So now for commerce and consumption, Bitcoin is definitely going to be a much bigger deal. You've also got Saylor University is now a thing. Saylor Academy, no more. Saylor University, the Florida Department of Education has granted Saylor.org university status, making a major milestone in our mission to provide free, world-class higher education for all.
Since 2008, Saylor Academy has offered free courses to anyone. Millions have learned and advanced without the burden of debt. And today, we take the next step. Saylor Academy has become Saylor University.
Again, this is the type of cognitive security that the future is going to bring you. You're going to get better education. You're going to get better news from Bitcoiners. Now that we've got these incentive structures, I think you're going to start to see everything that you heard Matt Walsh complain about: sponsors, where the money's coming from. Go back to what is possible now if Americans are running on the full P2P finance environment, the full P2P information environment. Remember what I've been saying for a long time, that Bitcoin is a P2P information network just as much as it's a P2P electronic cash network. And that peers in the Bitcoin network can disagree, they can have fights. Just look at the type of fights we've had. Yeah, they're stupid, but we're capable of doing them and still remaining as friends, as colleagues, as all of that stuff. That's what's coming for the MAGA movement. They're going to be able to reconsolidate stuff. All of these psyops that are going on, all of these diversions that are going on, you're going to see the new systems that are coming are going to be powerful. I see Chef Zero asks, what's my opinion of the Genius Act? I think the Genius Act is genius in the sense that it's embracing bimetallism. It embraces the Treasury-issued stablecoin, not the Federal Reserve note stablecoin. There's a huge difference in what genius and stablecoins mean for the American public debt and public finance. These are issued by Besant. They are issued by the Treasury. When the Treasury bonds are bought by the stablecoin issuer, that's where they come from. They're a new buyer of U.S. debt. They're not the Federal Reserve, and you're going to need it because yesterday we saw one of the biggest internal audits. We bought our own debt again yesterday. We're doing it again and again and again. So you need these new buyers. You need this bimetallism system. Genius Act sets up the bimetallic system. It also sets up a weaponization of the US dollar against foreign fiat currencies. So the first thing you're going to see, the shock absorber in the system, is going to be the dollarization of Venezuela. You're going to see the dollarization of Argentina. You're going to see the dollarization of Canada. You're going to see the dollarization of Japan. You're going to see the dollarization of all of these places. The Japanese prime minister coming tomorrow. I don't think she's going to talk about dollarization, but it's on its way. It's on its way. And even better, go back to the whole question of energy and what's going on with the energy question, right? Energy question is huge because, hold on, I got to get a couple of these erased, and I got to bring this one over. The whole energy question is important because it's part of where the Bitcoin mining question is headed. And how we do it and what parts we're connected to. Here's Jensen Huang, who just talked about space mining. We're going to do space mining now. Space mining.
I'll spend very little time on this time. However, we're going to space. We've already been out in space. Thor is radiation approved, and we're in satellites. You do imaging from satellites. In the future, we'll also build data centers in space. Obviously, very complicated to do so. We're working with our partners on a new computer called Vera Rubin Space One, and it's going to go out to space and start data centers out in space. Now, of course, in space, there's no conduction, there's no convection, there's just radiation. And so we have to figure out how to cool these systems out in space. But we've got lots of great.
So you're going to get some space mining. We're already seeing the Bitcoin potential nuclear reactor miners. Oklo is one of them. They finally got their permit yesterday. Today we announced a new U.S. Department of Energy approvals as part of the DOE reactor pilot program. That means 7 active projects, 4 states, power, fuel, and isotopes, all advancing in parallels. We're not waiting for the future of nuclear. We're building it. Indeed, you're going to see more and more of this stuff. What's going on here? So you're going to see more and more of this energy abundance coming. This is how we bring people back together in America. This is how we get rid of these divides. The foreign entanglements, I think, have to be eliminated before we get to this point. But that is what is important. And indeed, Ajax says American supremacy, our empire, our planet, our space. Indeed, everyone's worried about it. And I just think that it's all about economics. And I don't think of it as empire necessarily. I think of it as a shift towards a blue-collar, non-financialized world, and that the AI bottleneck that's out there, all these data centers going to space, where I think it's going to really shine, particularly this summer when we start to see the outlines of the golden age, are going to be in ways like this, right? The actual bottleneck in AI is blue-collar trades. The U.S. needs 500,000 new electricians this decade. Apprenticeship takes 5 years. Microsoft's Brad Smith says it's the #1 thing slowing data center expansion. The AI bottleneck isn't chips, it's the trades. And you're seeing here the counter to that, just to show you the direction things are headed. Blue collar economy. That's what Trump needs to keep his populist base together. It's not a investigation because Steve Bannon has questions, and Steve Bannon has been around all the time saying, how does Trump keep his populist revolution going? I don't think it's just deportations, right? I think it's things like this. Year 1 under Trump, the federal workforce is down 10%, the biggest shrink in decades. The swamp is finally receding. We see blue-collar jobs being prioritized, and we see these government sludge people jobs going away, and that's why it's a huge, huge change indeed. Now, flipping, right, we do have domestic news on the SAVE Act. Yesterday, it was on the floor. It looks like there's a simple majority. Even Mitch McConnell voted yes, but here's an update from the Senate floor. So this will tag on to the economic revolution this summer, and why I think that even if the SAVE Act doesn't come, you're going to see a huge Republican win. That's my prediction. So far, I think the Iran war will wind down by then. I think you're going to have a summer that celebrates the 250th anniversary of the United States and all kinds of amazing things. And so here's the update on the SAVE Act.
Hey there, Martha. Good afternoon. Well, we're still waiting right now for this vote to be closed, but right now we think this is going to pass. They don't have a simple majority yet, but I'm going to walk you through a couple of the members who were kind of on the fence and tell you how they voted. Susan Collins, Republican of Maine, she was a yes. Tom Tillis, the Republican from North Carolina, who we got the impression that he was going to be a no, has not voted yet. Mitch McConnell, the former Senate Majority Leader, he is a yes, and Lisa Murkowski is a no. So we think that this will pass. This is a test vote just to get onto the bill, and they will not need the services of J.D. Vance to possibly break a tie. what this does, it propels the Senate into a series of debates over the next, couple of days, probably through the weekend, and we'll see if they can ever, get the votes to pass this. John Thune, the Senate Majority Leader, earlier today, he was rather skeptical about that. And again, we have been told that his office, by his office, that they would in fact, have a test vote to end debate on this eventually, and that needs 60. So even if you have this simple majority now, they're probably not going to have that super majority, which needs the votes of Democrats to pass the bill. Now,
But of course, we know the plan is to head to the talking filibuster. It doesn't look like it's going to happen so far. Will the Save America Act pass the Senate? It appears unlikely at the moment. But the way I see it, Trump didn't come this far to be stopped at the goal line and leave the future of the republic to chance. Election security is national security. And Trump also told us that voter ID will be implemented, whether approved by Congress or not. Now, there are some serious optical advantages to getting the Dems on record opposing voter ID election security, so holding a vote that doesn't pass has value. But the Save America Act is not passing via 60 votes in the Senate. It's not passing unless there is a rule change to a simple majority via nuclear option or talking filibuster. However, the struggle could be exactly what Trump wants. I think Trump wants all Dems on record opposing voter ID, despite 90% of Americans wanting voter ID. Then once Trump has the optics he wants and the American public have thoroughly seen the Dems oppose the will of the American people, he will then go for the executive order route. If the Senate GOP eventually grow some balls and pass the bill with a simple majority, fantastic. But I don't see it happening unless there's a massive and rapid shift in attitude from Thune and the Senate GOP leadership. So what's my point? Don't freak out if the Save America Act doesn't pass the Senate right away. Trump has a plan, and he is not leaving the situation up to chance. I think that's true, indeed. Now, again, the way you're going to get there and the optics question is funny because, again, it's why I think you're going to see nothing but audits and nothing but an underlining. While you see this golden age take shape over the summer, you're going to see the opposite of the golden age, the audits and all of the fraud investigations and all of the paid voter schemes exposed. We've already got James O'Keefe in one of his best costumes ever. He went on the streets of LA dressed as a homeless person. You should see his homeless person outfit. Very funny stuff. Very, very funny stuff. So.
Now we're gonna give you $2. We gotta need 14 signatures.
The petitioner Brenda Brown hands cash money to the homeless person, not only for signing the California ballot initiative, but also as payment for them to register to vote.
Now, because you haven't registered, I need to register you so I can get paid too. I'm paying you guys, I need to get paid. Come on.
That is a federal felony. And it didn't just happen once, it happened over and over and over again. We personally witnessed and covertly filmed this happening at least 28 times over the span of our investigation, and that is just in Los Angeles. Many of the homeless have zero understanding of what it is that they're actually signing.
But what is that petition for? You know the petition for?
The petitioners instruct the homeless to enter made-up addresses like Pinocchio Lane.
Where do I put as my address?
Yeah, just put you live on Pinocchio Lane.
Oh, you can just take it.
Oh, good.
And all of this occurring just outside the front doors of shelters and NGOs such as Weingart Center, which have received hundreds of millions of dollars in government money. One Weingart employee tells us when and where to find the illegal cash exchanges for signatures outside, and says the cash being given out is coming from a higher source.
Do you know if they provide the money that they're handing out?
Yeah,
The company
that's when they give the money out, they gotta go.
I love that he's like invisible to people with these hilarious costumes. Like he just acts a little gay and no one gets it. It's Scooby-Doo level. It's amazing. Just absolute total theater. Very entertaining stuff indeed. What he shows in this video as a homeless man, he indeed shows LA Skid Row recorded 28 separate instances of paid petitioners handing out cash, cigarettes, marijuana in direct exchange for signing voter registration forms and election petitions, a clear state and federal felony. Petition circulators openly admit that they are paid per signature and can earn 1,000 US trash tokens in a single day. One begged $7 a signature, $5, $10 a signature. Indeed, homeless individuals were repeatedly told to use fake addresses. You can just put Pinocchio Lane and you can just add a fake address, and many had zero understanding of what they were actually signing. Petitions include radical measures funded by Uber, Delta, United Airlines, and the American Hotel and Lodging Association, such as a 5% one-time tax on billionaires for healthcare and overturning LA's 30 US trash token minimum wage for hotel and airline workers. Taxpayer-funded Weingart Center actively directed homeless residents for the bribe-paying petitioners and coach plausible deniability. And of course, it's totally illegal. And I think you got months of this stuff coming up. And just to show you where politics are right now in America and why I believe that even without the SAVE Act, with a hot economy, with all of these fraud investigations and international trouble gone, you're going to see a focus on these domestic issues, and why I continue to believe you're going to see a rout. There was some special elections yesterday. Virginia, Republican Andrew Rice is currently ahead by 29 points in a district that Winsome Sears won by 7 in November, a 22-point swing for the Republicans. And people are noticing, indeed, Republicans in Virginia are overperforming strongly, that the gerrymander attempt is suddenly looking much riskier for Gems. Here, Ben Braddock says it's not just improvement off of a really awful cycle for Sears. Trump won this district by 15 points in what was a great cycle for Republicans. And this guy is winning by 30. Virginians this year are crawling across broken glass to vote against Democrats. And indeed, Ro Khanna, just to show you again why the internet stuff doesn't matter that much, Ro Khanna managed to go 0 for 4 in contested races, spreading conspiratorial claims for reposts on X doesn't quite translate into actual influence with voters, which is what I think, and which is why I do believe you're going to see big change in America. Because the other part of it is these types are not going to be able to win the day. Here's Tallarico again saying it's existential to reduce meat consumption to fight climate change. I'm proud to say that our campaign has officially become a non-meat campaign. We're buying only vegan products from local. Imagine being in Texas and only buying vegan. Imagine being in Texas. This is what you can get. You can live like this in Texas. You know, the first thing I do when I go to Texas, I don't do anything else. I go to one of these places and I don't stop eating at them for 4 or 5 days. I love Texas for this reason alone. There could be nothing else in Texas except this kind of stuff. And that's all I'm doing. The last thing I would do is eat a vegetarian meal in Texas, of all places. Texas might have the best barbecue in the world. I mean, it legitimately might. I think it does. And this guy here is out trying to sell Texas vegan stuff. So between the veganism, between the fraud, between the bankrupt Federal Reserve, and finally removed is the foreign potential for disruption of the American conversation. I think that the golden age is not far now, and that we are almost there. There you go. No, I don't ignore the whole Israel thing. I've been watching Mudcast, talking about Israel the whole time. No one is ignoring. No one ignoring. All right, let's bring up Hank.
Hey, how are you? I'm here. It's Wednesday. I'm ready to ignore Israel.
Yeah, we're not ignoring Israel. I know that guy just.
Nobody's ignoring Israel. Did you see what they just came out with? It was like my buddy just sent it to me. He's very deep into the space, and it was from the Democratic majority for Israel. They were condemning Joe Kent's message as being anti-Semitic.
Yeah, I don't think it was. I think Joe.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they were saying essentially that he was insinuating that the Israel is forcing all of Donald Trump's hand on all.
Yeah, well, a lot of people are. I mean, that's the whole podcast fight on the right.
Yeah.
It's non-stop that. But you know, it's healthy to be able to have these questions, and I think that's good. If you can have these questions, if you can have these debates, it's great. You have to have them somewhere, because I don't think you're going to see a place where Republicans, you know, the amount of Democrats that they peeled off for the Trump coalition, the Tulsi Gabbards, the RFKs, that's where the real debate is right now within MAGA. That's why you're seeing that stuff happen, because we all have a right to ask questions. You all have a right to debate this stuff. Now, most MAGA people lost interest in debating with a lot of extreme left-wing people. They just don't, or they're not interested. And they all left. A lot of those people are on Blue Sky or whatever. So it's who's on Twitter right now, and that's who's debating. Now, you know, I personally could have predicted this was the most likely outcome, and I did. You know, this is what happened last June. The most likely outcome was always this. It was always, you know, it's not like you'd have a bunch of people go, oh, Trump, wow, you know, I had doubts, but he bombed them real good, and now I'm you were always going to see it in this way, and this is the predominant argument within MAGA, and has been for quite a while, especially since this coalition was formed. So with this coalition, it's just, you know, absolutely the easiest thing to predict. You know, Joe Kent asking these questions, he has every right to. A lot of people pointed out his point of view changed so quickly. It was much different a year ago. It was, you know, now I don't want to drag Joe Kent's name. I believe he believes this, so I'm not here and drag his name through the mud or anything like that. That's not, I think, healthy. I disagree with him. And I think with what Tulsi Gabbard said, you know, you have a commander in chief. At a certain point, you vote for a president because you trust their judgment in things that you simply can't do yourself. Now, people say that he doesn't have judgment and he's manipulated, but I mean, go look at what Israel's going through in this war. I mean, 2 people died last night. This is what they wanted, like win. You know?
There's a lot to talk about here, and I think we'll save that for the next hour, where you'll be joining me on Roxham TV News, Nolan. I know you got to wrap up with your guys here. So anybody, if you're interested, Nolan will be joining us in just a bit to talk about this story and others. So we'll see you in a bit, Nolan. I'll see you in a couple, my friend. Thanks. See you soon.
Indeed. You know, just one last thought on it, Mudcast. The idea, and I've been consistent about this, is I believe Israel was created for the purposes of division. I believe Israel is a divided place itself, and Israel is itself part of theater. It's not a real country. It's a place where you can guarantee theater and division. The point of Israel is division. The point of Israel is not, you know, blackmail the rest of the world. Israel was created by the UK, by the City of London, a non-sovereign, no king, no one even knows what the City of London is. And I think everything in the Middle East was created to divide people. It is a theater through which you divide people. And it's working. It's working very well. And so the point of it is as a prop. It's a prop on a stage. It's not a real place. It's a theater that you can use to divide people in order to maintain control. Now, my argument is that's what's ending, and that you're not going to be able to use Israel as a prop any longer after this, and that this is the end of Israel and the Middle East, that the Abraham Accords are holding, and Trump's new coalition is going to win. That's what I see. So, all right, everyone, that's the end of today's show. We got this. Soon it will be BBQ and curry, T-Dog Yo-Yo says. There we go. The mask says it all. California is so out of order. Yeah, funny. See you then, Hank. Indeed. Hilarious stuff. We have a robust judiciary. We don't. I wish we did. There we go. All right. Thanks, everyone. Brain melt went into overdrive. Yes, looks like it. It looks like it. We don't love Mark Levin either. Don't forget. Of course, we're not fans there either. So there you go, everyone. Indeed, Texas barbecue is awesome. The Salt Lick barbecue and Driftwood outside Austin is amazing. Yeah, I've been all of them, man. I love everything in Austin. All right, team, ready to cut. I'm going to hit the thing. You're going to see the logo and then the thanks for watching screen. Thanks for watching, everyone. Peace out. Peace out. Oh, that's not what I'm supposed to do. This is what I'm supposed to do. Peace.